Greetings, cyberspace cadets. It's IRATE Prostate here with another edition of Hot Takes with Big Fat Brian. Hey, buddy, what's happening? We're just hanging out and chewing the shit, chewing the fat, or shooting the shit. And we're here today to talk about something that's a little bit different, something a little out of my wheelhouse. I was telling Brian before we came on that when I was a kid, I went to a lot of westerns with my dad, and as a genre, I really hated it. I hated the western. The first real western that I ever really liked was Star Wars, and I mean A New Hope, which follows a pretty much a western arc of your typical western. And it wasn't until later, I learned to appreciate, movies, mostly the Sergio Leone shit, Clint Eastwood, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, High Plains Drifter, For a Few Dollars More, A Fistful of Dollars, all the Leone stuff. I also love the soundtracks of that shit, man. Some good stuff. We're looking at a series on Netflix that you, the viewer, voted in our Twitter poll a couple weeks ago. We gave you a choice of 3 different original series on Twitter, and Godless won. So, Brian. Me too. That's our president.
Hello?
Say it again, Brian.
Can you hear me now?
Right. Yeah. All right. So you were saying that the way that it was pitched in the ads and everything, that it looked like a you're probably working now. Check it out.
Yeah. Okay. So
how's that, y'all?
Can you guys hear me? Give me a 1 if you can hear me.
Give us a 1.
Still no Brian. Weird.
Second. Okay.
Can you guys hear me now? Hello? Hola, senor.
All right. Just keep talking, Brian. I think they should be able to hear you. We're on a 30-second delay. So
no.
That has something to do with
it. Yeah, probably. Anyway, so yeah, basically this was pitched as the series is going to be somewhat feminist, and it's gonna have empowerment of women in it and everything, and it's just Netflix doing their Netflix thing, just like Dear White People.
Dear White People, I know, man. Yeah. Man, I was thinking, man, this is going to be a virtue signaling, just a load of shit thrown in my face. I thought I was going to be able to do this show and be incensed and just pissed off and outraged about, how much I wasted my time watching it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I when I saw that our chat, and I really do apologize to our chat for this, because I did not have faith, and I should have had faith in you guys. When I saw that they had picked Godless, I was like, fuck, we have to watch Godless? God damn it! Like, I don't want to watch this.
Oh, man.
You motherfucking trolls, you know?
Exactly. So it was so surprising and so refreshing. I mean, from the fucking opening scene, you know, when Sam Waterston, which is the first time I've ever seen him like in a cowboy getup with the mustache and everything, man. He really looked the part, man. And he really played it really well. You tend to find him in a lot of those virtue signaling fucking pieces, especially independent stuff. Very, very liberally. He likes to choose those type of scripts. So it was. I was really fascinated when the opening scene is that they walk through this. You see this marshal and a group of I guess it's a posse, and they're trotting in this town that's been burnt to the ground, and you see charred bodies and shit, dead horses. I mean, just death and decay laying everywhere. And and then
Colorado,
right? And then the cameras, pulls up like into an aerial shot, right? And it shows him fall to his knees, and then we come too close to a telegraph pole, like an old, like a telephone pole. And and there's a little child hanging from it, like a 3-year-old child. I went, holy shit! I mean, it just was like, oh my god, this is just so. That was just such a punch in the gut, and it had me from then on. I'm like going, holy shit, what in the hell could do this? And
so I loved that intro. That intro. I mean, I was like, okay, I'll give it a chance. I'm going to come at this fair, like I do everything else. I'm lukewarm now. Hopefully, this shit doesn't get cold. And first thing, dead child on a telephone pole. Like, holy fuck!
I know, man.
Whoa, where did this come from? And there's I don't know. It's hard to even do a description of it justice, because there's just these. There's that woman that's singing in the middle of all this death and destruction. Yeah, it was a derailed train.
I think it was she was singing a hymnal song, about Jesus coming to redeem us and stuff, and he's going to save us from the evil, which I thought was just like this is just whack, man.
It has.
Go ahead.
It has the overbearing tone throughout the entire series, specifically with Frank. What is his last name? Frank Griffin, right?
Right.
Frank Griffin is. I mean, it's easy for him. I thought I muted that. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Frank Griffin is clearly a religious man, and he. Somewhat, I mean, it seems like he fancies himself a pastor the entire time, right?
Right.
As we're going through the show, and that's a beautiful part of foreshadowing, because there were a lot of I don't want to say hidden messages in this series, just like subtle nods at the Bible throughout the entire series, and how specifically some of the quotes he said, something about God is a fickle God or something, and I don't know, it was amazing. That the amount of foreshadowing and even the cinematography in this, like, you can see from the pictures how it's clear 4K, but it's also all of the garb and all of the trains and the houses. They're all built in a way you would expect them to be. I mean, if anyone ever saw Deadwood from HBO, That was another Western style series.
Well, they shot it on that set.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was something I learned in my research on this after I fell in love with it. And exactly, it had that, either they come off when they're trying to make a movie like this, where they make it too gritty or it's too clean. And this had the perfect balance of both, that made it realistic. See, too much of one or the other just makes it like, okay, they're really trying to show you how gritty the West was. We get it. They didn't have toilets, air conditioning, And then on the other half is like, well, this just looks fake, kind of like Westworld, where everything's too clean, in the Western sets and stuff. And I'm talking about the first season of Westworld, when it was an amusement park. So the way that they did this, the costumes look fantastic. The horse work was great. It was really fascinating to see. The main character, and the names were like, they were just spot on, perfect. You had Roy Good as the main character. You had McNew was the sheriff. Griffin, and I was looking up. But Griffins symbolize courage, power, boldness, strength. Militarily in a way.
Yes. Yeah.
There
was a ton of symbolism throughout the entire series.
and fucking Jeff Daniels, he was the most. It was really weird, man, because the way his character was written and the way he portrayed it, he really internalized this character and showed you how deep this dude was on an intellectual level, A, and B, how what word am I looking for? It's he was just intensity, man. He was.
Yeah, he gave him personality.
Yeah, and insane. He was fucking insane as shit too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah.
Psychotic, man. The dude was just far. It was, but he was. You could tell there was method to what he was doing. That this guy wasn't just killing people to kill them. He had reasons, man. And and he was just fully justified that all of this shit came from the good book, and you learn in the series that his origin is that his parents were murdered in a party that went out west, and what it was there was these Mormons that were dressed up like Indians, and they basically killed everybody they could, and they took all the women. Because they were Mormons, right? They needed some more women, because there's not enough women, all right? And because you're a Mormon.
Well, yeah, if you got multiple wives.
Right. It's, what is it, 99 problems, and the bitches, every one of them.
Yeah, well.
But, and I thought that detail was really nice, because I believe that kind of shit really went down. And the whole deal with there was a scene where the lady used gunpowder in a bullet wound to cauterize it. And they used to do that, because I remember reading that. And I would go, God damn, that would hurt. But it kept him from bleeding to death. I'm going to be all over the place on this thing, because this stuff, it's kind of coming back to me backward and forward, and that's kind of the way they filmed this thing, with several different timelines, and a lot of it was retrospect. When we learn about really what happened to the town where they found the baby dead and everything, you learn that Jeff Daniels, Griffin, and his crew are looking for this one member of this crew that's left them and has betrayed them. And that betrayal, he sees this kid, the main character, as his son, and the fact that his own son betrayed him, it has wounded him so deeply that any city, any town that knows of, where he is or harbors him, he's going to fucking burn him to the ground and use God's judgment against him.
Yes. Well, and here's the thing. The reason that this was such a beautiful film is because there was a blatant analogy for the entire scenario they were in. Specifically, in the very beginning of the show, you see that Frank Griffith gets his arm cut off by a doctor because it's pretty much been shot off. Right.
It was barely hanging on. Right. The guy said, "I'm surprised you made that didn't fall off when you ride out here on the horse."
But he couldn't. Frank Griffith couldn't even fathom that his own son would betray him and leave him, because he considers himself a righteous man the entire time. He in his eyes, he's never done anything wrong.
Right. He's fully justified, right, in stealing money from these mines. Or really, it's not money he's stealing. Well, it's currency, and it's gold and silver ore.
Pay stubs or payroll.
Payrolls too. Yep.
Yeah. And the analogy of him losing that arm is anathema to him losing Roy Good.
Right. Exactly.
It's beautiful. Like, whoever directed this, actually, I can tell you who directed this. One sec.
Yeah, what are his credits to his name? Because this guy is fucking excellent. And who wrote? You tell me. We want to know about the writer of this thing too, because it wasn't adapted from a novel. I don't think we looked that up, and supposedly this is from an original script. For the series.
Yeah,
it was originally scripted for.
Just one sec. I am looking that up right now.
Yeah.
Details USA, filming location, Santa Fe studio. This was filmed in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We already knew that because we knew the Deadwood thing. By the way, I don't say this very often. This was better than Deadwood, the series. And I don't even like Westerns.
Right.
Like,
what's so interesting, Brian, is that you and I are like, we have similar tastes in the types of movies and shit that we like, but but we'll disagree on certain things, here and there. But pretty much, it's like I came into this thing, not being a big fan of Westerns. There was only a handful of movies that I even think are worth watching in the genre, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So I came into this thing thinking, oh fuck, it's a Western and it's a feminist thing. It's like, god damn,
Same here. Yeah.
It's like, oh, all right. So I'm going to be a fucking pack mule on this thing and be the beast of burden for our subs, so they don't have to watch it. And I feel the exact opposite after having gone on this fucking awesome journey. You see, and there's multiple storylines. The main storyline is John Good's, Roy Good. I don't know why I said John, but Roy Good he's on this major redemption arc, right? Mm-hmm. And he's left the life of crime. He's on the run. He realizes that he can't go back. Because to go back is to face the wrath of the Father, which is once again it's that old school Bible Belt type burning in hell type thing, right? And what's really fascinating here is that and Jeff Daniels' character Frank Griffin reminded me of Robert Duvall in Apocalypse Now, where he's standing up in the middle of all this shit's going on, fucking grenades, mortars coming at him, bullets flying everywhere, and he's just standing up there talking about how he loved the smell of napalm and shit.
Yeah,
you know,
yes.
and this dude is like sitting in the middle of a firefight on his horse, just looking around, going, you know, and he would keep saying this thing over and over again. When, you know, whenever his mortality came into play, he would say, "This ain't my death. I've seen my death, and this ain't it." And it was kind of a head game that he was playing with the people that he was, you know, that he was against, you know.
Yeah, it's his way of saying you don't have the right to kill me.
Right.
You can't kill me.
Right. Because God has revealed to me, right, exactly, you know, what my death is and when you know, and when it is. And, you know, and as, oops, sorry about that, y'all. And as a matter of fact, that when the movie, you know, comes to a climax, you know, that whole deal comes into play. You know, the movie, you know, of course, and then, all right, so we've got this, the main plot is Roy, you know, on his redemption, you know, coming back to glory and to himself. And then we've got this sheriff named McNew. And this is Scoop McNairy is the main guy, is the actor that plays this guy. And he's a great. He was on this great show that nobody watched called *Halt and Catch Fire*, which was about the birth of the internet based companies. You know, it was literally, not literally, but it paralleled the birth of like Google. Basically, and it was really well done, and his character was fantastic in that. This dude is a really good actor. So, what it is that this guy he's slowly going blind. He thinks, and they talk about it that he was in love with his wife, and he had lost his wife, and all the Native Americans that would talk to him, they would say that, you know, he had lost his shadow. And he, you know, he would say, "What the fuck does that mean?" You know, it lost my shadow. And, you know, and it was alluding to, he just lost really his will to be in it. You know, he was disconnected. His child, he had a little daughter that was just, kind of feral. She didn't talk. And, he was barely connected to the people that he loved. And this whole, so he sets out on his own to find Frank Griffin and kill him. Really, he wants to be killed.
Yeah.
You know, he wants to be with his wife, who died of, I think she died of scarlet fever or smallpox, some shit like that.
Well, that's pretty evident in the there's a scene in the very beginning where they're basically unnamed cowboys, right? Are shooting off their weapons in the middle of town, right? And why am I blanking on his name? He walks out and he trips, right?
McNew.
Yeah, McNew. He walks out and he trips because he's basically blind. He falls right in front of him, and then Whitey Wim pops out of nowhere and is like, "What's up, pow?" Shoots him in the face and the neck, like just out of nowhere. And that really, I mean, that's before he goes on his quest to find Frank Griffith. So
his shadow.
His shadow. Yeah.
Which you know what I'm saying? So we've got this story, okay? We've got the story of Frank McNew and the quest, and then there's Whitey, this kid, this fastest gun, you know, could do all these little tricks with his pistols, you know, pistolero, I believe he called, and a couple, not far from the town that they live in is this. The name of the town is LaBelle, New Mexico, which, you know, means the woman or the beauty. And so that's and that's not lost on the whole idea that the town is, you know, populated by women, because the silver mine had an accident. Some of the dust ignited and it sucked all the oxygen out. You know, once that fire hit, not a lot of people were burned to death by it. Most of them died from suffocation and lack of oxygen. That's kind of the way those Moab bombs work. Just for, you know, future reference. It sucks all the oxygen out. And,
that or the pressure turns you into jelly.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And if you're not jelly, you suffocate. So LaBelle is literally populated by pretty much women. There's a couple of people, and I found that the idea of the town of the women was like, it did. In retrospect, it seemed like that the hype about it being a town of nothing but women was just that. It was just hype. And it was like a bait and switch. It was almost like, fuck you feminists. We're going to tell you that we got this feminist series and we're going to give you a real fucking Western,
right
in the gut
about strong men.
Right, we're gonna punch you in the face and the gut.
This is what it means to be a real man.
There were some really great, powerful women in this show. McNew's sister, who was obviously a confirmed lesbian. Dressed like a man. She took her maiden name back after her husband was killed. Let's see. The richest person in town was the only prostitute that was left, and she ended up being the school teacher. All these these subplots going on.
But so that's the thing though. In those times, that's how that was, because shit would happen. And then they'd be like, we got to have somebody do this. Do you want to do this? Sure. Go ahead and teach the children.
Right. Somebody's got to do it.
Exactly.
I think she was, there's a scene where she's reading the newspaper to everybody. So I think she's one of the few people in the town that could read and write.
That's what I got from that.
Yeah. That's what I got too, is that all those women. And so there's a mining company that comes in, and they want to buy they want to buy the mine for pennies on the dollar. And McNew's sister, I think, what was her name? Agnes, Maggie. She went
the only woman.
Yeah,
the only woman I couldn't stand.
Her name was Mary Agnes, and he called her Maggie. And Maggie said, "No, we want 50%. And you're going to pay this much for the mine." And they said, "No, we're going to pay this much, and we'll give you 20% or something." So it was a ridiculous amount of money. It was not nearly as much as they should have paid. And and the women, instead of doing the smart thing and let Maggie negotiate for them, right? Because she knew what she was talking about. She could talk about production. Her husband, it looked like the guy that she was married to was the guy that ran the mine, right? Or it may have been an engineer, showing them where, how to fortify the tunnels and shit. Because you have to have an engineer on site to do any kind of mining. You just can't start digging into a mountain.
No, because that shit'll collapse on you. Yeah,
in a New York minute, right? Exactly.
Yeah. I mixed them up. I didn't dislike Maggie. I disliked the woman with the really dark black hair that ended up accepting the deal for the 10%, 90% on the mine.
Right.
She was a kind of a skinnier, moon-faced woman. I'm trying to find her name.
I don't think they even gave her a name, or if they did, it wasn't. It wasn't.
She wasn't a big. Yeah.
You see, here's the deal. This was cut down to a 7-episode, mini series instead of it's like Uzi Q and I were talking about how this could have been stretched out into a 3 or 4 year series, right? Where they focused on all the minutia, and this year
her name was Charlotte Temple.
Right, we would focus on the women. We would focus one season, and then of course the ongoing arc would be the one with Griffin, right? And we had talked about how they deliberately chopped this thing down to 7 episodes. I mean, it has less episodes than, than most of their other, full length series. And
it's a British format, to be honest.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And it fucking works beautifully, man. If they'd added any fat to this thing, it would have sucked, because it was just so perfectly done. It had just enough of everything. There was a scene early on where he and the boy named Truckee, who I thought was a really weird name to name a kid, but the kid was kind of weird anyway. And to be honest, I think that this was supposed to be seen through his eyes. That's for some reason I got that he was the if this had been a novel, he would have been the voice of this would have been coming from him.
Yeah, like a remembering of it.
Yeah, kind of like the Indian in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You don't realize that anyway. So he's talking to him about how to ride in the woods. Like going down in the mountain, you got to watch out for these certain trees, because when they get struck by lightning, or if they die off and shit and they fall a certain way, and it makes it tricky for the horses. It makes it easy for them to break their legs and shit. And I was thinking, God damn, this is the only waste of time I've seen in this show. But it comes all the way back to that in a certain point, when it puts the kid in mortal danger, because he forgets the lesson that he learned that day, and he almost gets turned like Roy was turned by Griffin into becoming one of his family.
No. The series on its own is very neatly done. Like, there's no loose ends. There's none.
Exactly.
I can't see there's not a single one. The only thing I could even think of where there would be a somewhat loose end is the mining guys that ride off, right? But I mean, you sort of get a conclusion on them too. They rode off. They became cowards.
They stole the horses. So the women had to stay in town. What they were hoping was that they all got wiped out, and then they could come in and mop up, man. And all they'd have to do is burn a bunch of dead bodies, get the goddamn mine for free, and move in.
Yeah. Exactly.
It was Kim Coates from Sons of Anarchy. Plays like this. It looks like he was a Pinkerton that got fired, right?
Yeah.
Because he dressed like a Pinkerton, everything but the badge. But he was the head of the security team. So I kind of drew that, even though that they didn't talk about that. And of course, then there's the town called Blackton, which was populated. It was a really shitty patch of land given to the former Buffalo soldiers from the Civil War, which was the famed Buffalo soldiers of the Union Army that was all African American, former slaves, etc. Right, and they were, and they had even done mercenary work after the war in Texas, right, as rangers. So there's, and then there's Whitey and the daughter. So they tied that in nicely, man. I thought, it's like, oh shit, there's going to be some bullshit thing here. No virtue signaling at all, man. There are lessons that you don't have to virtue signal about shit. That's the argument I think that they're making here, man, is that everything that you see happen is realistic, and it's the way it was, and whether it's socially just or not doesn't fucking matter.
There was one part, I mean, like, okay, so back, even if they were Buffalo soldiers, right? Back then, they still wouldn't have got the same style of respect that they were given in the series, but that is such a small thing that it didn't ruin the series for me, they usually would have used like racial slurs to describe people like that, you know?
Right, and they didn't. They didn't have to. I mean, they respected them, man, because of their war record. These guys were fighters, man. They were badasses. That was the whole, and so at some point I had a false kind of a hope that these guys were going to help these people out, right? But they don't ever get a chance to, because they were arguing about it at the dinner table when Griffin knocks on the door.
Exactly.
And it was interesting the way they played all that shit off.
Before we go any further here, I've got a bunch of information on the director.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yes. Scott Frank directed, wrote, and produced it.
Oh wow.
He had a large team. I'm not going to list off all these names. There's a lot of assistant directors and a ton of people on this list, producers and everything. But for the most part, apparently, Scott Frank is the man that's getting most of the credit for this, especially since he was the writer. And I gotta say, this man's work is amazing. Like, he's also known, he wrote Logan, or he was a writer for Logan the movie, part of Minority Report, Out of Sight, Lookout, a couple others. Let's see here. We'll jump to some of his writing. He wrote The Wolverine, Marley and Me, The Interpreter, Flight of the Phoenix.
The reboot of Flight of the Phoenix?
Yeah, he wrote. He worked on the screenplay on that. Not completely written by him.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a bunch other Walter Ego, Little Man Tate, Dead Again, The Wonder Years, 1988. He's been around a little while.
Right. Yeah. The dude is definitely. So I bet that this is one of those lifelong projects that he's had as in his heart. And I think this is a beautiful little perfect storm of creativity, execution, and delivery. It's interesting because the actors that he's got in it, man, they're top-notch actors. So obviously they wanted to work with this guy, but they're top-notch character actors. That's the word I was trying to find out. Because they're not top-notch like A-level, A-tier. I always come to Brad Pitt. They're not that level of leading material.
Well, I mean, Jeff Daniels is known for being a spectacular actor.
Absolutely.
I mean, you saw Newsroom, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to bring up Newsroom, his work in that, which was excellent, man. Let's see what else I got. Some stuff written down. Let me look at my thing. Not that thing. This thing. Looper. Remember the character he played in that. He played the big bad in that too. But he worked for the Rain Man. Did you see Looper, man?
I did see Looper.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good movie, even though it had a lot of people didn't really like it.
I loved it. I thought it was a fantastic movie, man. I thought it was well done too. So I think that the character in Looper is maybe the seed of this character that we see. This guy's fully fleshed out. The character in Looper, I don't think was fully fleshed out.
I agree. I definitely would say that Looper, while a good movie, was not as good as this series. This series was, it was good. Like there was no part where I was sitting there going, man, I'm bored. I wish I was doing something else. Or, wow, this sort of angers me because this is really unrealistic or anything like that. It was all so good. In fact, you know that boy that's hanging on the telephone pole in the first episode?
Yeah.
You know that's CGI, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, of course, there's a lot of CGI work that was done on it that was just beautifully done. I mean, the execution was flawless, man. There's almost
you
times
can barely tell.
Yeah, because you and I look for this shit, and I guarantee you the average person's not going to see it. I mean, that's the look is exactly what. Like I said earlier, man, it was exactly what I would have expected it to be, in a realistic manner. See, my problem is that I've studied history. I know I know quite a bit about history and the way that things were done, especially when it comes to the Civil War, in that era, right? And so I like it when the clothes don't look too worn out. They don't look, they're not overly stressed and dusty, and they're not they don't look brand new either, right? They did the way that they did all of that stuff was just exquisite.
Yes, it was.
So I mean, they went to every small detail. What I'm trying to say is it's detailed to a point of where he's trying to create this illusion, and I bought it, man. I was, I had to watch the next episode. I mean, it was really hard, because one night it was like 4 a.m, and I think I had 3 episodes, or maybe it was the last 2 left, and I was like, God damn it, man! I didn't want to go to bed.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially on those last 2 episodes.
No shit. I know, exactly. Well, it was like, so that would have been episode 5. I'd finished 5 and I was fixing to go into 6, right? And it was too late. And I said, God damn it, I got to go to bed. And I didn't want to, man. God, let's see, what else? And then there's the gang itself. Griffin's gang, man. All the fucking members of the gang were individually fleshed out. The knife throwing dude, the twins, the guy with the beard. He was on this show called The Outsiders that only went 2 seasons. Was really good though. He played an eco terrorist. He's a really good actor. Let's see who else. What other? And then Roy, was like, it showed where Jeff Daniels taught him how to whisper to the horses and to get them to, to lay down. That was a great scene when he got all 5 of those horses just to lay down and, under his power and just by gently coaxing. I mean, that's against their nature. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it showed that Frank Griffith was not a stupid man, because and that he wasn't just a tyrant. It showed that really that whole scene was character development, and there's a ton of character development in this series that is really good, and specifically the point that he makes that rather than beating the animal or spurring the animal, that sometimes all you need is a soft hand, and you don't have to put that much force. You just have to let them know you're the leader.
It's all about trust.
It is all about trust and family.
And he was giving away that's the way he put together his gang.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. That's exactly what he was saying. He was just giving him the rules for how he had done everything.
Exactly.
And obviously a child's not going to understand what's going on, but looking back on that, you can sort of see that Roy Good was like, he understood the methods of this person and realized that he's not mad and he's not stupid. He may be narcissistic and somewhat arrogant and more, have a flair of the righteous in him. But he too is not a monolith. You can you can take him down.
Yep.
If you know how he works.
Right.
That's essentially what it was saying.
Right. And before we get any further, because we're almost at a quarter till, if you can believe it, is to talk about Alice and her situation. The main female character is this lady named Alice Fletcher. She owns some property, really a nice huge parcel of ranch land just north or uphill from the town. And so when Sam, God damn it, when Roy Good stumbles onto the property, right, he's wounded from a gunfight, and she shoots him in the neck, and so he wakes up, and there's this Native American old lady who's only speaking in Paiute. Right, that's the only thing she did was speak in her language. And then there was this little, Native American boy. Right, they don't explain it until later. What the situation. She said it was his son, but the question was, how did she get the land? And she said, well, that was my first husband. And what happened was that she met her first husband. It was an arranged marriage between her dad and his business partner. Mm-hmm. And while he was showing her the land, a flash flood literally killed this dude, right? And this beautiful dress that he told her to wear, that he sent her so he would know who she was when he picked her up at the train station, was literally got hung on a tree trunk, or sticking up out of the ground, and literally prevented her from drowning. And so from the very beginning, and then the sheriff is the one that ruled that she could keep the land.
Yeah. And
then not long after that, she got attacked by some Paiutes and kidnapped. Right.
I think. That's what happened. Yeah. Sorry. There's so much story to it.
Right. Exactly.
So remember all of it.
Right. Well, the whole deal is that they give you an answer for every fucking question you can pretty much think of. Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Except for a couple of the gang characters that really don't need to be fleshed out, because they just add, they're like condiments, they're, to the whole situation. They're not necessary, but they're nice to have. The mustard and the ketchup, I really like the knife throwing guy. And then the big dude that rode up inside, during the climax of the show, rode up inside the hotel and went after that one woman that shot his friend. And then there were the twins, that spoke their own language and shit. And they had murdered their whole fucking family.
Yeah, their whole family, yeah.
and they said, man, they lied to them and said it was Indians or some shit. Man,
everyone there knew. Every single person there knew it was them.
Yeah, exactly, man. He goes, yeah, I don't think this was done by native hands, because I don't see any horse, hooves or anything. And, the Griffin character looks at him and says, these guys are instant members of the family, obviously.
Right?
Because they're psycho as fuck.
Because they'll do whatever he says.
Exactly. So, and that was one of those accents that there was a question about those, because those were the twins that were almost being hung, that led to that town being burnt down at the beginning. He said, y'all want judgment, I'm going to give you judgment. So that was the cause of the child, that we see in the very first minutes of the entire series. And then there's this scene, you think that Sam Waterston is this, is a character, he's a marshal, and he's also hunting, Griffin down. Why he and McNew don't set out together, I didn't get it. But it's interesting, Sam Waterston, one of the most famous actors in the thing, they decide to take him out in the third episode. And I mean, it's just like boom, and blow his brains out with a shotgun. I mean, there's some graphic shit in this thing, man. I mean, realistic gore, brains getting blown out, people being decapitated, severed limbs, etc. So, this definitely isn't for the faint of heart. I think it's for a more adult.
Just say the least.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to put this into, give you guys an idea of how much gore there actually is. Frank Griffith travels around with his severed arm the entire series.
Well, yeah, and there's one scene where it's pointing, right?
Yeah, it's like a magical item to him that he uses to find his way.
Well, and there's this weird thing about bees being attracted to him or his flesh. Even when he's, the movie, the series climaxes in a gunfight between he and Roy Good, of course, right? And
yeah, we all knew it was going to end up there.
Yeah, exactly. Roy, they draw on each other, and Roy, beats him to it, and he hits him in the chest, and he goes, I've seen my death. This ain't it. And the guy looks at him and he says basically bullshit and blows his brains out, and then even after that, a fly comes up a bee comes up and lights on his head. And
spoiler alert, anyone.
The bees, man. See, I couldn't figure out what the bees were signifying.
They were foreshadowing. They were foreshadowing his death because they were all over his dead arm.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense then. Okay, because I was like trying to figure out a deeper meaning to them. Because,
I'm pretty sure there's something about bees in the Bible too.
Yeah. Well, in medieval times, the bee, they were a symbol of wealth and shit. The de Medici family made the bee their symbol. So
yeah.
I'll look it up. Bee symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bee symbolizes community, brightness, and personal power. Once again, power. Like Griffin, symbolizing courage and power, boldness. But I think you're right though that the bees were more of a symbol of of things to come. For Frank, that his arm kind of beat him to it. And I think he was carrying it around because he wanted to be buried with it. People were real funny about that kind of shit back then.
Well, there is Psalms 118:12. They surrounded me like bees. They were extinguished as fire of thorns. In the name of the Lord, I will surely cut them off. So
that definitely that about says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the reference they were going for.
So, and that's in Psalms?
Yeah, that's Psalms 118:12.
Your Bible pretty good, boy.
No, I know how to Google pretty good.
Oh man, so fuck. I'm trying to figure if there's anything I've missed. Uzi Q, she's the one that urged me to talk about the grandmother. She wanted to talk about the grandmother whose name we don't find out what it means until the end, and her name meant dove. And she was anything but peaceful. She was a spiteful, mean old bitch. That she hated that. She hated the protagonist, but you could tell that she kind of liked him, but she was that was funny as shit because everybody laughed when he told her that meant dove. So a lot of people or a lot of the reviews that I had seen, they cite that this actor that played the main character Roy Good was also in this thing called Damnation, which was a series. I'm not sure if it was on on network television or what. But it didn't. It only went one season, I believe. And he played the main character in this. And they said that this is what Damnation was trying to be. So a lot of people really look up and see this as kind of like a watershed moment in I think serial or cable television, I guess, movie making or series. You know, I keep referring to it as a film because it plays out like a a 7-hour movie, man, which is fucking excellent.
It really is,
because you get that vastness, the bigness of it. You know, it's so bigly done. You know.
Yeah. It's. I mean, like, okay, so I can't really, honestly, I can't think of anything about this movie I didn't like. I mean, there's only like that one, like I said, Charlotte Templeton or whatever her name was, and that's a woman that's in the series for all of a minute, maybe.
Well, and I don't think we're supposed to like her. I think
you're not really supposed to. It's right. It's intentional that she's supposed to look like sort of like a trope, if you will, you know,
right?
Like she's a weak woman,
right? She's clearly the used to being the wealthy woman in town, and she's used to being the head of the Daughters of the American Revolution, those kind of stupid socialite type societies, and instead of looking to the powerful position of negotiation, they look to her, which is the weakest. And so everything that she symbolizes is like a paper tiger, and her bluster is all bullshit. It's rooted out of fear, whereas the Mary Agnes or Maggie, hers was rooted out of courage. It's a very brave person to be who she consider. In this case, it's nominated for a GLAAD award for that couple. I deliberately am playing down the gay shit because it's just it fits.
It does. It's a side story, really. They don't make it the main story.
Right, exactly. And I think that was a smart play too. Like I said, everything about it, everything that could have been virtue signaled didn't need to be. We all get it. Because this guy did what a lot of filmmakers and producers, they don't understand. They don't understand that we're smart enough to get shit. We're not complete imbeciles.
Well, I mean, you might even call it the brush of subtlety, because he really this thing's like an onion, basically. Like if you were just to watch it and, let's say, I don't know, play video games while watching it or something, you would have fun just on the adventure, on the surface level stuff you picked up. But if you were to watch it really, really closely, you're gonna have even more fun, because it's got so many different layers of meaning throughout the series that, I mean, I'm not trying to sound pretentious or anything, but it's like you really can tell that the amount of work put into this was more than just a surface level Western. This is no what is that Western that has the guy from Hitman in it?
You talking about Timothy Oliphant?
Yes, I am.
No, it's not Deadwood.
It's not Deadwood. It's the other one. Hold on, I've got IMDb up. We can find this right now.
I thought Timothy Oliphant was in Deadwood.
He was, but he was also in another Western. It's called Justified. This is no Justified. And I feel like, I know a lot of people love Justified, but Justified is everything that's wrong with the Western genre.
Yeah. All right, so I guess it's time to start talking. We're in kind of the wind down phase. Tim Tarbox, do you wish to remain wrenchless? Just putting it out there, brah. Tom Pinoid, what's happening, man?
What up, Pinoid?
Yeah, Goat Man made it. All right, which it's good when the goat shows. Gosh, all right. So I'm gonna let you do your little wind down first, and then score it.
Okay. So the wind down on this, I think that even if you're not into westerns, you should watch this. I mean, if you like film as and you're into like really things that'll stand the test of time, and they're really better quality. If you have an appreciation for something that's good, I would really recommend this for you. And if they don't even have to ask me. Anyone who I'm recommending something about, something that's on Netflix to, is going to get a recommendation for this, because it is an amazing series. I want to go into one little part before we end here.
Okay.
There's a scene in this show where Frank Griffith comes across a sick house, and what do they have? They all have cholera, right?
No, smallpox. Yeah,
smallpox, right? Smallpox, not cholera. Of course, smallpox. They have the pox all over them. But the doctor's there. All the people are dying. There's one girl that's still mobile, but she's clearly got smallpox. And Frank Griffith, to prove that, not even to prove that he wasn't an evil man, but to show that he is not a merciless man, comforted them, brought them water. Meanwhile, he was having the Devlin twins dig graves in the back of the house, because he knew that the only way to make sure nobody else got sick was to murder them and bury them.
Right.
So, I mean, for the most part, the people inside that house were already dead, but it shows a depth of character that you would not normally get. I gotta say, in probably maybe 5 or 6 years, I've not seen anything this good. And so I am officially giving this the Big Fat Brian stamp of approval. It's getting a 9.5 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah, that never happens.
No, you don't even get close to 9.5. So,
yeah.
All right. Jeff Daniels by far is the main. This character that he plays is almost on a level. Well, no, you know what? I'm going to give it, because it's one of those things that's like, even if you're not into westerns, you will appreciate this guy's complexity. The bad guy in this thing, if you hate cowboy movies but you like bad guy movies, man, this dude is a dimensional bad guy. And so we've talked about this guy for an hour, and we still probably haven't scratched the surface about his character, really. I think the closest character I can imagine would be Harris's, Hannibal Lecter. And just in the development, the way that Hopkins did it in Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
It's that good of a portrayal, man.
Yeah, it's really anti-hero versus anti-hero is what this is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, everything was perfectly, carved up. There's not too much fat. I gave it. I'm right up with you, Brian, on this thing, man. I'm right at. Actually, I gave it a 9.8, 9.9. I thought it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, just from beginning to end. Entertainment wise, fascination wise, it kept me fascinated, which is really difficult for me to do. I mean, for anything for me to, it's really hard to keep my attention like this thing did. But this thing kept pulling at me and saying, watch more, because I wanted to know what was going to happen. So, Death Irukan, it's okay, buddy. You can watch this later, dude. All right? Don't feel bad.
What up, Death?
That's right. But yeah, I think with what all we've said about this series is that Brian and I both recommend that you check it out. If you got the time, it's that time of year where all the series are winding down. We're seeing season finales of all kinds of things. So this is the perfect time to crank this up, and I mean you'll devour this thing quickly in a weekend. So yeah. I highly recommend it. We could talk for about another 30 minutes on this thing, but I mean, shit, we've said all there is. That I think that there can be said right now.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, to be fair, we had a spoiler warning, but we really didn't give that much away. There is a lot that you guys. As soon as we get out, all right, we're going to be, oh, fuck, we didn't talk about this. Oh, fuck, we didn't talk about that. And we'd spend an hour in the after stream talking about what we forgot. Yeah, pretty much.
You know what I'm saying, man?
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about next week.
Oh, right.
What one this is, all right, what we did today was the first poll, audience participation, viewers' choice poll, that y'all picked this series, and we covered it, and thank you, by the way. And so last week we gave you 3 serial killers that we're going to cover in our true crime next week.
Yep.
And so who did they choose?
Our winner was, I believe it was, there it is. It is Anders Breivik, the Norwegian mass murderer. Yeah. So we're gonna go over that one next week.
This is the one that got 22 years.
Yeah, because I think it's 28 because that's the maximum legal sentence they have in that country.
That is so fucked up. And man, this dude had killed a whole lot of people. So yeah, this is going to be really fun to check out. What's the name of the series for everybody?
The name of the series on Netflix is Inside the Mind of a Serial Killer, and Anders Breivik is episode 3. So make sure you watch episode 3. We're probably going to be doing a couple others from the series as well. I'll be putting up other surveys for our true crime. That's going to be the last week in all of the month, every month. So if you guys like it, then let us know, and we'll definitely bring you some more content on that as well.
Well, I think it's time for us to lay out the dough. Does anybody you know what? I'm going to just say, hey man, that's the show. How about it?
Yeah.
You ready? Life. We're out the door, and we'll see y'all next week. Another one's in the bucket.